Welcome back to your stimulus package update. President Joe Biden spoke yesterday from a sound studio again. The digital projection window of Biden's White House set shows flowers blooming in the Rose Garden. The set was constructed across the street from the actual White House in the Executive Office building. Does anyone know why he's not filming from the actual White House though? Why does Joe Biden feel the need to use a fake White House set across the street from the actual White House? Just curious, so if you know the answer, please share it with us in the comments section below.
My friends, and there are many of my friends, the Senate Republicans' position I find to be not only hypocritical but dangerous and a bit disgraceful, especially as we're crawling our way out of a pandemic that cost America 700,000 lives thus far, and we're still battling it. Our markets are rattled, America's savings are on the line, the American people, your savings, your pocketbook are directly impacted by this stunt. It doesn't have to be this way. My Republican friends need to stop playing Russian roulette with the U.S. economy. If they don't want to do the job, just get out of the way.
Joseph Biden said his $3.5 trillion spending bill is a tax cut.
So guess what? You got nothing. Zero. No help. My friends and other team have no problem giving billionaires and millionaires gigantic tax breaks. This is a tax cut. You know, what it does is, now, and it's in place, and people in your state are understanding it now, instead of it provides an up the ante how much you could get for a child under 7, you get $3,600 tax cut on a yearly basis. And you get $3,000 for a child under 17. But guess what we did? That means we're doing it on a monthly basis now.
Joe also spoke about oil, I think.
Parenthetically, when you build a charging station, it's like back in the day when my grandpa worked for the American Oil Company back in the turn of in the 1920 in that area. They went from state to state convincing people that they allowed them to put 20,000 gallons of gasoline under the ground. They didn't want them around. But
Senator Joe Manchin says, relax, the government will not default.
We are not going to default as a country. We will not default. That's the responsibility we have as senators, as congressmen, as 535 of us responsible to protect this great country in an equal branch of government.
Senator Mike Braun also says the government's not going to tank.
The government's not going to tank. I think that's an over-dramatization of what would happen. John, this is going to happen sooner or later through an elongated process, which we've had no appetite to do in the time I've been here and in probably the decade before I got here. So sooner or later, you can't run the biggest business in the world borrowing 23 cents on the dollar every year, taking those structural deficits up to about $1.5 trillion. And yes, it's shameful that we've gotten here. It's been both sides contributing to it. I just think this is a place where you hold the line and they can do it on their own. The difference here is they've got all the levers to get it done. They just want us to be part of it, which endorses the $6.5 trillion that we add on top of the $4.5 trillion we do annually, even though it's spread out over time. It's just going for broke in a time when we ought to say enough is enough. Let's try to fix the place.
NASDAQ's president and CEO, Adena Friedman, says if the U.S. were to default, she expects the markets would react very, very negatively. She said it would get to a DEFCON 10 type of situation. She also added this could impact savings, retirement, and pension accounts.
DEFCON 10 question. If we don't, if we default, even for a day or two, what does that do to people's retirement accounts?
Yeah, I think we have to realize that well over half of the adult Americans have money in the stock market, either directly or indirectly. And so those savings accounts, those retirement accounts, the pensions, they'll all experience a significant and sharp drop in their values, which of course makes them feel less certain about their ability to manage their lives and their savings and plan for retirement.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Republicans in Congress are treating American savings and investments like a game of Monopoly by choosing not to raise the debt limit.
Even as we look to risk tomorrow, the next day, as the American people are looking at their retirement counts, worrying about their Social Security savings, members of the military worrying about their payments, we don't need to incur that risk uncertainty. And I think it's important to also remember we're at this point because Republicans in Congress treated the savings accounts and retirement savings of the American people, Social Security checks of retirees, and veterans benefits like a game of Monopoly, putting the stability and security of the American people at risk. We're at this point because Republicans in Congress blocked efforts by Democrats to raise the debt limit and protect the full faith and credit of the United States, despite having voted for it 3 times during the Trump administration. So obviously, as has been reported, the vote has been delayed. There's still an opportunity for Republicans to join us in being adults in the room and ensure that people have confidence in the economic security and their own retirement savings.
Also, still no word yet from Psaki as to whether or not Joe Biden can forgive $10,000 of student loan debt, as he promised to do when running for president. Lawmakers are getting closer to a deal on the human infrastructure bill, which will now be between $1.9 to $2.2 trillion after eliminating or modifying some of the items. It started at $3.5 trillion, then Joe Manchin wanted to chop it down to $1.5 trillion, but now Joe Biden is giving in, saying the price tag will be around $1.9 to $2.2 trillion. Senator Manchin said he has not ruled anything out yet when it comes to the price of the bill.
So it sounds like you're not ruling out that price tag.
Well, I'm not ruling anything out, but the bottom line is I want to make sure that we're strategic, we do the right job, and we don't basically add more to the concerns we have right now.
So that is a big issue, a big development, because getting to an agreement on a top-line number has been one of the major sticking points for among Democrats to get an overall deal here. But there are still a lot of other sticking points that they have to resolve. Yesterday, Joe Manchin told me a, quote, red line for him is the so-called Hyde Amendment, which prevents federal money going for abortion services. Manchin opposes abortion. Progressives say they don't want the Hyde Amendment to be part of it. He wants means testing also on a lot of the new social programs that are part of this bill. That is a key sticking point they're going to have to hash out. And coming from a coal-producing state, he has resisted calls for aggressive measures on climate change, and that too has been pushed aggressively by most Democrats on Capitol Hill. So a lot of major issues to resolve here, but on this issue, the still overall price tag, perhaps they're a little closer. Can they get to an agreement? The leaders want to get to it by the end of the month.
But 2 people do not have the right to sabotage what 48 want and what the President of the United States wants. That to me is wrong.
Mr. Manchin also wants to cut down on the number of people who qualify for the child tax credit. Joe believes spending $200 billion per year would be, quote, changing our whole society to an entitlement mentality. He also believes spending $150 billion per year does not.
So I've been very clear when it comes to who we are as a society, who we are as a nation, and why we are still the hope of the world. I don't believe that we should turn our society into an entitlement society. I think that we should still be a compassionate, rewarding society. I think that fares best for all of us. But compassion means taking care of those who can't take care of themselves, whether they're young, whether they've had some type of a challenge in life, whether it be mental or physical. Those are responsibilities that we have, and we can all meet those responsibilities. And I feel very strongly about that. And we will continue. This is going to take time to get this done. Getting it done quickly is not going to benefit anybody. So let's make sure that we do it and do it right.
Here's what Bernie Sanders had to say to Joe Manchin.
Now, Senator Manchin, as I understand it, talked about today about not wanting to see our country become an entitlement society. Well, I am not exactly sure what he means by that. Does that mean that we end the $300 direct payments for working class parents, which have cut childhood poverty in this country as a result of the American Rescue Plan, in half? Is protecting working families and cutting childhood poverty and entitlement? Does Senator Manchin think we should once again have one of the highest levels of childhood poverty of any major country on earth?
I truly implore both leaders. My caucus leader is, and the majority leader is Chuck Schumer, and basically the minority leader is Mitch McConnell. I implore them to engage, start working, work this out. There should not be a crisis.
Manchin seems to oppose so many things, so what does he actually agree on and what does he want?
I think it's very important we understand that we need to do tax reform to make sure the wealthiest, they got the best advantages, the biggest advantages from the 2017 tax cuts pay their fair share. I think the corporations that enjoy this great country and the comfort and the protection of this great country pay their fair share. I think also we have to make sure that we're committed to children at the beginning of life, that we can help them, and also our seniors at the end of life, that we can give them the dignity and a quality of life of living in your home if you desire to do that. These are all things we can set priorities. This is not a heavy lift. I think also lowering the price of drugs. It makes no sense at all that we don't go out and negotiate. The VA does a tremendous job. Medicaid does it. Why doesn't Medicare? These are things we all can agree on.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell spoke from the floor, using his time to blame Democrats.
They wanted to turn their failure into everybody else's crisis, playing risky games with our economy, using manufactured drama to bully their own members, indulging petty politics instead of governing. Their entire failed approach to governing in a nutshell on full display for the country.
Even before a vote, Democrats have started bragging that Mitch McConnell has finally caved in, offering a short-term solution to prevent a crisis on the debt limit, all through a press release.
And McConnell is making an offer to Democrats. He is putting a few options on the table. One that has been an option is expedited reconciliation. He says his party would agree to do this through the reconciliation, or let Democrats do this through the reconciliation process, but speed it up a bit. He also says that he's now going to offer a short-term extension of the debt limit into December. So he says it would have to be by a fixed amount, but that would give Democrats more time, as he sees it, to do this through reconciliation. He's trying to take away the excuse that Democrats have made that they can't do it because they don't have enough time. He's trying to take that issue off the table. He also said if Democrats were to drop their social spending and tax package, then he said a more traditional bipartisan governing conversation could be possible. Clearly, that is not going to happen. But again, the real key here is this short-term extension that he's offering.
Jen Psaki said Mitch's press release was not a formal offer.
Right now, and perhaps this is the awkwardness of 4:15, while people are still meeting on the Hill, right now Democratic members are meeting on the Hill to discuss options on the path forward. I think Republican members may also be meeting or discussing among themselves. My understanding at the point I walked out here is that there's been no formal offer made. A press release is not a formal offer. And regardless, even the scant details that have been reported present more complicated, more difficult options than the one that is quite obvious in the president's view and is in front of the faces of every member up on the Hill. We could get this done today. We don't need to kick the can. We don't need to go through a cumbersome process that every day brings additional risks.
After a long caucus, Democrats said they will accept a short-term increase until December as laid out by McConnell, but they will not use reconciliation for a longer-term solution for the debt ceiling. Democrats say a short increase of the debt ceiling will help them finish work on their agenda. Senate Democrats signaled to accept the deal because, according to Bernie Sanders, quote, Mitch McConnell finally saw the light on offering a solution that could pass quickly. Sanders said the bill must pass as soon as possible because the clock is ticking. He added this would have been a disaster if this did not happen. Bernie says they're going to try to get the debt limit bill over to the House as soon as possible, but the House is out this week, so it will take a couple of days to bring members back if they need to hold a recorded vote. They'll need an agreement of all 100 senators to schedule a vote. Otherwise, Schumer would have to take procedural steps to break a filibuster. Oh, and FYI, Manchin and Sinema did not even address the caucus even once. If you'd like to know the real reason for them striking a deal, the politicians are already due for yet another paid vacation, which they'll be leaving for next week on October 11th. If the debt ceiling issue was not resolved, lawmakers would have had to consider canceling their vacays. So it looks like this debt limit theater will continue once again in December. Senator Tammy Duckworth said she thinks it's great that Mitch McConnell folded and added that Democrats will not lift the debt limit in reconciliation. Tammy Duckworth also tweeted, "Retweet if you believe Election Day should be a federal holiday." Her post was retweeted over 70,000 times, receiving over 125,000 likes. Attaching Mitch McConnell's speech from the floor, which you'll see after this, Katie Porter tweeted, "BS Floor Speech 2021, starring Mitch McConnell, directed by Big Pharma, written by Big Pharma, financed by Big Pharma."
Arbitrary price setting on prescription drugs would cut down the private sector's incentive to keep innovating. Expert research shows Americans and the whole world would be left with fewer new drugs, fewer new treatments, and fewer new.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib admitted she only wears her mask for the cameras. Watch Tlaib as she says, "I'm just wearing it because I've got a Republican tracker here."
Oh, my God. Oh, I thought you were like, one unmasked guy. Because I got
Senator Richard Blumenthal finally broke his silence on Finstigate.
I had a moment like this myself, Senator, where when I first learned what it was, a fake Instagram account, it's sort of like a shadow Instagram account that the youngins use, right? There's been a lot of fallout, judgment of you for saying that. What is your response to it?
I took a little ribbing online. The internet had a laugh, my kids had a laugh, and I had a laugh. But, you know, we created a fake Instagram account, so certainly I know what Finsta is, and I explained it in the first part of that hearing, as people later acknowledged.
Ex-Democrat Andrew Yang started his new Forward Party and explained why he chose to do so.
Andrew Yang says he is breaking up with the Democratic Party. Yet the former Democratic presidential and New York mayoral candidate is now a registered independent, and he is starting what he calls the Forward Party. A lot of people have tried to make a third party successful, right? To have one before. Why would this one be viable?
Polarization is now at record highs, and it's just getting worse, Don. And right now, Gallup just said 62% of Americans are looking for a third party. The question is, why have none of them worked? And the answer is mechanics. You have closed party primaries that are driving the polarization. So that's what the Forward Party is looking to change, to shift to open primaries and ranked choice voting that would both decrease polarization and lower the country's temperature, but also give rise to new options and new alternatives.
Yeah. Well, listen, as a registered independent, welcome to the club, okay? So, what? Go on.
No, really, that's fantastic, man. It's, you know, I'm new to the club, but I'm enjoying it so far.
In case you missed Jen Psaki and Peter Doocy yesterday, here you go.
Kerry says that after France was cut out of the nuclear submarine deal and they were upset enough about being left in the dark that they pulled their ambassador, he went to the president and, quote, the president literally had not been aware of what had transpired. So what else are you guys not telling the president?
Of course, he was aware of the French being upset. Let me finish. Let me finish. I know John Kerry quite well. He, of course, was aware, the president, of the French being displeased about the deal with the Australians. John Kerry also speaks regularly to the French as a part of his role as the climate envoy. He's someone who also served as Secretary of State. He's someone I alone traveled to France with him 25 times. He, of course, conveyed to the president what his read was of what they were specifically unhappy about and how to help address it.
You said this president's first love is foreign policy. So why doesn't he know about these things in real time?
Of course he knew about the French being displeased. Let me finish.
Literally had not been aware.
Peter, I would encourage you to ask John Kerry specifically about the context of his comments. The president and the former secretary are also good friends. He relies on his counsel, and as he does with many members of his national security team, but that certainly is not what he was intending to convey. Go ahead.
In other news, the price of the world's most valuable cryptocurrency spiked nearly 10% Wednesday morning to around $55,000. Following news that the investment firm founded by billionaire George Soros owns Bitcoin. The Bitcoin surge comes one day after prices popped above $50,000 for the first time in 4 weeks. Also yesterday, the Department of Justice announced the launch of a national cryptocurrency enforcement team. No surprise here, but 3 people at the head of Moderna cracked the Forbes list for the wealthiest people in the US. Their net worths total $4.9 billion, $5 billion, and $5.9 billion. Former President Donald Trump actually fell off the list for the first time in 25 years. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen also has done quite well, earning $7.2 million in speaking fees just over the last 2 years. If you enjoyed today's video, feel free to give it a like by pressing the thumbs up button and subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more update videos like these. That, my friends, is the latest and greatest stimulus package updates for today. As always, I truly do appreciate you taking the time to watch today's video, and I hope to see you soon.